No, I remember playing the piano, the songs on the piano with Fischer Disco. It must be in the early 70s. The Wunderhorn and Fascination and Rückertlieder. All except the Kindertonlieder because they are not original, the piano version. And I conducted the first Mahler symphony I conducted was the fifth in 1973. But I came for my biography, as it were, quite late to Mahler. I started very young, as you know, also with conducting and things, but I was not really into it for me quite late, until I was over 30. Or rather the opposite. I remember many concerts where made me dislike it even more, because I found in the Mahler concert that I had heard two extremes. One sort of exaggeratedly emotional in the sense that the text was used as an excuse for self-expression for the part of the conductor, sometimes on a very high level, or others that remained completely, who withdrew from any kind of emotional content in that and was rather dry. What fascinated me with Mahler's use of the dynamics was also not only that he wrote all this down, the individual dynamics, but very often he wrote the same music, the same notes, in different groups of instruments with opposite dynamic, so that you had the same notes, but you had, for instance, the clarinets starting fortissimo and making a diminuendo, and at the same time, in unison, the violas starting pianissimo and making a crescendo to fortissimo, so that you had the line more or less sustained on one level of volume, but with a complete change of color. And these are the aspects, this is what I realized then, that in my stupidity I thought was artificiality, whereas in fact it is his complexity. And this is what drew me more and more to that. Also, I must say, my occupation with Wagner, because the Wagner influence on Mahler is very often ignored. You know, one only talks about Mahler, Jewish origins, and the klezmer music, and psychoanalysis and all the things, but basically, without Wagner, there would have been no Mahler. And the most interesting thing about Mahler is that he really had one foot in the past and one in the future. That he had the one foot in Wagner and the other foot in Schoenberg. There's a very beautiful, very poetic video document of Leonard Bernstein of The Little Drummer Boy, where he talks all about the Jewish background and all that Mahler had this feeling of guilt of having been Jewish and all. It's very lovely and it's very poetic, but it doesn't help understand the music one bit, in my view. Not one bit. You know, and then you had also, for instance, I remember a most wonderful performance of the Mahler Nines with Giulini. Well then, yes, and people were saying, oh yes, Giulini is a fervent Catholic, and you feel this redemption, and you feel this being at one with God and all this thing, you know. In the end, I'm reminded of one reply of Toscanini when he was asked about the Eroica Symphony. And they said, Maestro, what do you think? Some people say that Beethoven wrote the Eroica for against Napoleon. He said, I know they said against Napoleon, and nowadays they say it's against Mussolini and against Hitler and all this. For me, the eroica of Beethoven is allegro con brio. In other words, it is very dangerous to verbalize about music, because in the end we don't speak about the music, but we speak about our reaction to it. And frankly, I'm not interested in Leonard Bernstein's reaction to the music, how he speaks. I'm interested in how he conducted the music. And for this, I don't need his words. I conducted the fifth because I was a very stubborn child and then a stubborn young man. And I went to a concert of the Seventh Symphony of Mahler in London, which Klemperer conducted, and I hated the piece. And I told him, I can't sing it. It was on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And Klemperer said to me, he says, you are so terrible that you even preferred the seventh Mahler than going to the synagogue. You know, and then he gave me a whole lecture to say, you know, you can't, you are limited, and this is all the Furtwängler influence, and Furtwängler did like this because Mahler was Jewish, because all kind of really very exaggerated and unnecessary remarks. And he said to me, basically, the only symphony of Mahler that is not good is the fifth. And so, of course, that is the symphony that I conducted. Aus Trotz. The most wonderful thing, I think, about the Mahler symphonies, and this is why Pierre Boulez and I decided to do the cycle in one go, is because it is as if Mahler looked for and found a different idiom for each symphony. Very few composers did that. Beethoven did that. If you don't know too much about music and you hear the Beethoven Fifth Symphony and then you hear the Pastoral, you think it's by a different composer, which you cannot say about Brahms, which you cannot say about Bruckner, and you cannot say about Schumann. But you can certainly say about Mahler. I don't want to conduct a Mahler symphony so that it justifies the program. I want to conduct a Mahler symphony according to what I'm able to read in the score. And if you have read the program and it fits, all the better. Yes, but how can you explain that Hitler went to performance of Lohengrin? He went to many performances of Lohengrin, and he's supposed to have gone to performance of Lohengrin in Bayreuth in 1936, conducted by Furtwängler, which I'm sure was so wonderful, and he was moved to tears by it. How do you put together the fact that you can be moved to tears by music and then murder millions of people? Or Stalin, whose favorite piece of music was the D minor concerto of Mozart, probably was also moved to tears. And 20 million people were murdered by him. How is this possible? You cannot connect this thing. That's why I keep repeating the same phrase. The music is larger than all of this. Music is like a complete world. And the world you can talk about, if you talk about nature, you can talk about the lakes, and you can talk about the mountains, and you can talk about the cities, and you can talk about the desert. But the world is all this plus a lot more. And when you talk about Mahler's neurosis and Mahler's fear of the anti-Semitism and all this, it's as if you would talk about the world only about one element in it. And these are all things that went inside him, and like all great musicians, what he gave us is not only an exercise in counterpoint, melody, and rhythm, but what he felt as the innermost content of his being.